Good evening, and I call this meeting the first of our school year to order. Today is Tuesday, August the 16th, and welcome. Let us do roll.
Mr. Frank.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Castro.
Here.
I'm here, and you're here.
Excellent. We're all here. And I did get an email from Tristan Schotthauer. He was scheduled to come, but he had a reaction, and so he is not going to be here today. So we wish him well. And let's stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we move to the approval of the minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the minutes have been approved. I am going to move to the agenda, and I am going to ask for two changes. One is to remove the bid for legal services under 5C3, to move it out of consent agenda, so that we can have some discussion and perhaps vote on each of the law firms. And then the second item is to move up, since I see we have quite an audience today from Mesilla Valley Alternative, is to go ahead and move them up. Let's see, where are they at? I'll find it. Is it
6A.
6A, to move them up to right after public input. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda has been amended. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I so move.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now the agenda has been approved as amended. We now move on to consent agenda items, and let me look at this other one here. Sorry, I didn't list all my minutes by date. Is that okay? All right. I will entertain I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items. 5.1, approval of budget adjustments. 5.2, approval of bids minus the one on the legal counsel. And 5.3, approval of property dispositions. And 5.4, approval of vendor payments. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second from Mr. Davis and Mr. Castro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the consent agenda items have been approved.
Is it possible to have any discussion on them?
On which one?
I was thinking, well, okay, so you already took care of my concern in 2, but what about 3?
All right. What number?
So it's 5C3.
C. Okay, property dispositions. Well, we already approved it.
I know, I wanted to discuss
All
something in
right.
there.
Can
I
we
wanted to put a hold on
rescind?
it.
Ms. Galvan?
I'm sorry.
An opinion? He wants to.
You can ask that you take another vote for your.
To reconsider.
Okay, so we're going to reconsider not only 5C3, but we're also going to reconsider 5C2. Is that what you want, Mr. Frank? 5C2?
Yeah, actually, yes.
Is it the bids?
5C2 and 3.
Okay.
But 2 is specifically with regard to the attorneys.
Yes.
So that's going to be handled separately anyway.
Yes.
So it's really only 5C3.
Okay. So then
You'll entertain a motion to reapprove the amended agenda, and then you can go through that.
but don't I have to take 5C3 off first?
Is that what you hadn't done that before?
We had not done it. We
Okay,
did
yes,
5C2.
Yes.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to remove 5C3 as per Mr. Frank's request.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Second, first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that motion passes, and now I will vote to approve the re-amended agenda, minus those two items in 5C2 and 3.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that has been amended now twice, okay? And I'd like to welcome Mr. Huckes to the dais. He's a new face, and so we're happy to have you. Welcome. And Crystal, too. Is this your first time, Crystal? I'm sorry. So we have two new members up here, so welcome to our new administrators. Okay. All right, so let me go back to the agenda, and now we are in recognition, and I think I will turn it over to Dr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, we would like to recognize Virgin Galactic and the Asombro Institute for Science Education. And basically for the board, and we have those members who are here, and we'll ask you to come forward in a minute. But during the month of June, our Challenger Learning Center held 4 weeks of summer camps for 3rd through 8th graders. 190 students attended the Mars-themed academic competition. In addition to the Challenger Learning Center staff, there were 2 amazing organizations that I would like to recognize for their support of this summer program. Since the opening of the Challenger Center in August of 2015, Virgin Galactic has demonstrated a remarkable commitment to educational outreach. Jonathan Firth, Executive Vice President of Spaceport and Program Development for Virgin Galactic, and his staff have volunteered their time to support summer camp students. Mr. Firth conducted lessons on the fundamentals of spaceflight, the future of space tourism in New Mexico, and STEM career opportunities. Students also held a space chat with a Virgin Galactic future astronaut. Additionally, 66 students attended a full-day field trip to the Virgin Galactic Gateway building at Spaceport America. The students were given unprecedented access to tour the facility and conduct an engineering design challenge. Would the folks from Virgin Galactic who are here please come forward? Would you please join me in the President in recognizing these great people for their educational outreach to our children? Thank you. Thank you. Madam President, we would also, and members of the board, we would also like to recognize Dr. Stephanie Besselmeyer, Executive Director for the Asombro Institute for Science Education. Each year, this organization provides amazing classroom and field trip programs for thousands of LCPS students. To support our summer camp, the staff developed life science-based lessons that evoked curiosity on the exploration of planet Mars. By focusing on student collaboration and scientific learning, the students determined the necessary components for humans to inhabit Mars. So there's always a future for those of us who are still here on Earth. The Las Cruces Public School greatly appreciates the Asombro Institute for Science Education to enhance our educational offerings. We look forward to continuing our collaboration focused on increasing the number of students interested in STEM careers. Dr. Besselmeyer, are you here? And all of your staff that come and work so hard for our kids. Again, a shout out for Virgin Galactic and for the Asombro Institute and our Challenger staff. We have many of our Challenger staff members here. If you would stand and be recognized for your outstanding work as well. Madam President, members of the board, it gives me it's an incredible honor to recognize Dr. Susan Brown. I've known Dr. Brown for many, many years, and she was on my dissertation committee, actually. And so it's because of Dr. Brown that she let me pass and get my PhD. Dr. Brown is the STEM Outreach Director for the College of Education at New Mexico State University. She has her PhD from NMSU with a Doctor of Philosophy, a major in Curriculum Instruction, and a minor in Multicultural Education. She also has a Master's of Arts in Education, Curriculum and Instruction from New Mexico State University, and a Bachelor of Arts from Highlands University in Las Vegas, New Mexico. Not only does this woman bring such great capacity to the community of Las Cruces, but she has enhanced and enriched the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of teachers and students in the Las Cruces public school system. She has written grants that have totaled in the millions of dollars, and I can't even come close to putting a price tag on the millions of dollars of grants that you have written, Susan. And the grants have always focused on our kids, and they've always focused on our teachers, professional development for our teachers and opportunities for our kids. And I'd like the audience to know that Dr. Brown just authored a grant last year. It was to 21st Century Community of Learners. And one of the things she did, our staff at Lynn Middle School, who is engaging in a opportunity for to develop a community school concept, she actually put into that grant $75,000 to pay for the community schools coordinator, transportation to get kids to and from after school activities when there was no transportation at home, and for supplies and materials and professional development, on top of outreach for 20, how many elementary schools? 24 elementary schools to provide after-school STEM learning activities, and many of the principals who are here will benefit from that. Dr. Brown, would you please come forward so we can thank you for your years of work with LCPS? With that, Madam President, members of the board, that concludes our formal recognition, but if I may take a personal point of privilege for just a couple of seconds to recognize two of our colleagues who are leaving the district. One is Mr. Terry Dean, and you all received a letter from me accepting his retirement. And where is Mr. Dean? Mr. Dean is in the back. I was fortunate to have had the opportunity to work closely with Mr. Dean when I was the deputy superintendent here in the Las Cruces Public Schools. He really is a professional, quite a professional, and he's dedicated lots of time and energy to this district. And Terry, you're always guided, and this is what we're going to miss, you're always guided by the highest ethical standards as you manage an incredibly complex budget. And we all are very, very thankful to you for the years of service that you've given to us and the difficult times that this district has gone through with budgets and things like that. And I just wanted to recognize you. And Terry's last day of work is August 30th. And so, Terry, thank you. And we will have a gift for you at your going away party. Because we can't, we'll have a nice gift for you at your going away party, okay? So, best wishes from the community to Mr. Dean as he retires and goes on to other things. Thank you, Terry. And Madam President, members of the board, I'm sure many of you have read in the newspaper that Andrea Fletcher is leaving us. And I'm very jealous of her appointment because she is an associate dean at New Mexico State University, working with the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship Program. It's an MBA program that's training folks to get their educational credentials. But I don't know if many of you know, I kind of pulled her employment record today because I can do that now. And she started with the district as a fifth grade teacher at Tombaugh Elementary. And that was back in 1998, Andrea. And she was an elementary teacher, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, teacher of elementary at Jornada Elementary. Then she went back to Tombaugh, and then she did her administrative internship and became principal at Hillrise Elementary in 2005. And she was there until she came to the superintendent's office and worked with our community outreach office, the work that Mr. Calderon is doing now, and became associate superintendent in human resources, and has very graciously accepted the reins to be the associate superintendent for instruction. And Andrea is quite a remarkable individual, very, very bright woman. We're going to miss her, but it's nice to know that she's just down the street at NMSU, so maybe we'll get together, the three of us, and have a cup of coffee sometime, okay? How's that, Dr. Brown? But Andrea, I just wanted to say on behalf of the community and all of us here, thank you for your years of service to the district and to our wonderful children. That concludes the recognitions, Madam President.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sanchez, and bon voyage to both of you. We will miss you. We move on to public input. Before we start, I would like to remind everyone that it is the board's practice not to respond to or take action on any statements made during public input. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and I only have one. Is there any other desire to speak? And I will call up Andre Gonzalez, our school board student advisor emeritus.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Really quickly, I am leaving for college next week, so you won't be seeing me for a while. You're welcome. The reason why I'm here today is because a couple weeks ago, I was reading the newspaper, and I came across an article talking about a letter that was sent to the board by Congressman Steve Pierce. And this article concerned me because he had offered his support if it was the board's wish to not comply with the Obama administration's guidelines regarding transgendered students and use of gender-neutral bathrooms. Madam President, members of the board, if there was a genuine concern in the communities that he represents, then the congressman or his staff could have seen that this board just last year passed a Safe Zone initiative to help provide safe spaces for our LGBT plus students. He would have seen that this board has been the most supportive board for students. And so I'm here because I'm concerned, because this is a very direct threat to the progress that we have made. Madam President, members of the board, I'm here because I helped advocate to make our schools more accepting and more open to students from across the district. And I'm here to urge you to not accept this support that's being offered, because that's just not who we are, period. This is a staunch reminder, Madam President, members of the board, that this district, although we have made great strides forward, that there are very real things that need to be addressed. We need to address, as a community, how to console the third grader who runs into his counselor's office crying because he didn't reach proficiency on the state exam. We have to figure out as a community how to reassure the fourth grader who comes to his parents and says, I don't want to take that test because I don't want to hurt my teacher. I don't want to hurt her employment. Madam President, members of the board, we need to figure out how to justify the fact that now we are preparing kindergartners for standardized exams, and we as a community need to figure out how to address the fact that just yesterday, teachers had to have more students in their classrooms with less resources. These are very real problems that we face as a district. However, I know that this board is up to the task and more than willing to take those challenges on. And I want to thank you all, as I'm taking off for university, for the support that you've given me and the support that you've given all of your students. And I ask you to keep that support going. Thank you.
You want to-
And you are wrong, Andre. We are going to miss you. We certainly are. Okay, that takes us now to the issue at hand. We moved up the approval of the name change for Mesilla Valley Alternative. And I think we have a presentation.
Yes. Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of the audience, I would just like to bring you up to speed on the Mesilla Valley Alternative Middle School and give you a little history for 2 seconds. This school has served the needs of children in the Las Cruces schools in many different capacities. It opened as an elementary school, transformed its mission to the Mesilla Valley Training Center, serving the special education needs of area high school students. And in 1988, it became a middle and high school vocational program that served students from across the district. In 2012, the school was reconstituted to serve as a district-wide alternative middle school. In 2015, the Public Education Department approved the restructuring of the school from a middle school to a K-8 school. This change was requested to accommodate the behavioral intervention classrooms that serve elementary students from across the district. This year, the school, under new leadership, has enrolled to date, and I still think this number is correct, but correct me if I'm wrong, 95 students. It went up since I talked to you. 95 students. In a meeting of parents and students during the summer, and I was very thrilled to have attended that meeting, the students elected to change the name of the school to better reflect its mission. And Dr. Tony Hull, our principal, is going to introduce the students and the teachers and the parent who is here to make this request to the board.
Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Sanchez. We come to you today with a proposal to change the name of the Mesilla Valley Alternative Middle School to the Mesilla Valley Leadership Academy. Middle school's a critical time for students, and it's where children become young adults. In order to do this, they must first become leaders in their learning. John F. Kennedy said, "Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other." And we have created a learning environment that brings the two together and need a name that not only matches that sentiment, but sets the expectations for our kids here in Las Cruces. With that said, I'm going to turn it over so you hear from the most important people at our school, our students, our teachers, and an amazing parent. All of these people are the reason why we do what we do every day. And so I want to introduce Kylie Garcia, Taylor Triolo, Jaciel Urieta, I can't even talk. Mrs. Kuhn, our science teacher, and Mrs. Urieta, who is our president of our PTO.
Madam President, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Sanchez. My name is Kylie Garcia. I'm 11 years old, and I am a student. I'm a 6th grade student at Mesilla Valley Alternative Middle School, and this is why I believe our school name should be changed. When people hear alternative school, it already holds a bad stigma. They automatically start thinking negatively about it. It deters parents because they think that the kids are bad or are troublemakers, which we are not. The word leadership sums up what we want for our school: to be leaders in our community, no matter what the type. Leaders try to make a difference in any way that they can. To me, it means a good example and influence to others. And in our generation, we have the opportunity to make choices to become tomorrow's great leaders. Please give us the name Leadership Academy. Help motivate and inspire more children to embrace their education and future and uniqueness. Thank you for your time and consideration of our school's name change. Have a good rest of your day and week.
Thank you, Kylie.
Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Sanchez. Hi, my name is Taylor Triolo, and I think it was a great idea for my principal, Dr. Hall, to change our school name from LEAP to Mesilla Valley Leadership Academy, because we take ownership of our own learning. We are in middle school, so it's time to show other schools what leadership looks like. We are not just a regular middle school, we are a leadership school, and just because we are a small school with so little people, we can make a difference in our community. When people come to see what we're all about, they'll see a school full of leadership. We are a great example of what leadership is all about. Thank you for giving me the time to express my views on our school name change.
Thank you, Taylor.
Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Sanchez. Hi, my name is Jaciel Urrueta, and I've been in this school for 2 years already, and I have a great experience. You know, with this new name, it will fit perfect, because academy means a place of study or training in a special field, and that's what this school does. It trains you to be a great leader for the future, helps you make our own decisions, but for it to be a good one and beneficial in our lives, every decision with a purpose. That's why I want this school to name Mesilla Valley Leadership Academy. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez. My name is Ann Kuhn, and I have the honor of teaching science over at Mesilla Valley Alternative Middle School right now. These amazing students in just 2 days have shown me a character that is above and beyond anything I ever dreamed of. They are leaders, and they are an amazing representation of the children we have in that school. And I digress, I should say young men and women, because while they may be 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they have already shown that they are young men and young women, and they are itching to be leaders. Words have power, and as Kylie mentioned, leaders are what they want to be. Leaders are what they want to show the rest of not just our community, but the world. And we want that power to influence the rest of our community. They're ready for the challenge. And as you can see, I'm full of pride because they are just amazing students. And we want to help the rest of the community understand that this is a change that is overdue, very much needed. So please do consider our request to change the name to Mesilla Valley Leadership Academy. And thank you for your time.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez. Hi, my name is Erica Urueta. I am an active parent at Mesilla Valley Alternative Middle School. I've been there for 2 years with my son. And I have noticed, every time I would mention to the teachers where I worked or other parents that my son goes to Mesilla Valley Alternative Middle School, they would kind of get iffy about it, as how Kylie said they would hear alternative. And I think they kind of got confused because they even thought it was like Crossroads. And I had to explain to them that it's nothing like that. It helps them in the future. It's more hands-on. And it helps them to be leaders, like they were explaining and they were saying in their speech. And I would really consider that for them to be academy leadership, because they do show that in all the students, the teachers also, and also our new Dr. Hall, our new principal. And I would really would like you guys to consider it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, with this compelling argument made by the students, the teacher, and the parent, your interim superintendent and cabinet concur with the recommendation, and we turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sanchez. So that was a very compelling argument. You have stated your case well. We appreciate your have taken the time to do such a good job. It's not easy. So congratulations to you, your teachers, and your families. Now, I will entertain a motion to adopt the proposed name change from Mesilla Valley Alternative Middle School to Mesilla Valley Leadership Academy, and that the superintendent be authorized to inform the Public Education Department of the name change. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Davis and Mr. Castro second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Congratulations. Now you're just going to have to remind us to make our changes up here, okay? Because we keep having to remember different things like this. So good luck, and we expect some of these students to be up here on the dais as our student advisor in high school. Congratulations. Okay, so we are now moving on to the superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, the first item up is the status report on the first day of school, and I'm very, very proud to report that our schools were ready. We have a lot of our principals here in attendance. The environments were clean. They looked great. Teachers had worked really hard to get their rooms ready over the 4 days prior to that, and we are proud to report that our kids were, the buildings were ready for our students. We have identified already some potential overloads, and I think Andre mentions some of that. Dr. Marufo in HR and I in the cabinet have started to examine those numbers very, very carefully, teacher by teacher, to see where we may need to provide some relief. Buses and transportation generally ran as scheduled. We did experience a few delays and a few issues with some of the routes. Some of the routes changed. We had some issues, and we continue to have some issues today, but I think things are getting better. I want to commend Associate Superintendent Hawkes and Mr. Del Toro, our Director of Transportation, for working directly with the bus company to alleviate many of the problems, many of which always happen the first two days of school, but there are some other problems that they're having to work through. Students new to the district, if any of you are new to the district, you're going to experience some delay in getting into the student information system for your online courses and those kinds of things as we get the students registered for their distance learning courses. It'll take a few days. One school in particular, Conley Elementary, started off the school year with 5 classrooms not having certified teachers in them, although we do have some very good substitutes who are certified teachers who are working in those classrooms. And Dr. Marufo is working furiously to find the best teachers that we have for our children. Other than that, Madam President, members of the board, I just want to say thanks to all of our principals and to the central office directors for getting things ready, and most importantly to our teachers, our educational assistants, our cafeteria workers, and our custodians, our maintenance folks who really made sure that our buildings were ready. So it was a big team effort, thanks to all of them. With that, Madam President, we'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Board members, do we have any questions on the first 2 days of school, which basically were complaint-free for me?
Pretty, and Madam President, I've
Complaint-free.
been here as your deputy superintendent for 8 years, and as I recall, I was checking with the instruction department today with Miss Fletcher's department, and we haven't had a lot of phone calls. I think the biggest angst has been some of the transportation issues, and that's why Mr. Del Toro and Gabe have been working on that, and I applaud them for their excellent work.
Any comments or, in regards to the Conley situation, what was the reason that there were 5 vacancies at one school?
Madam President, I'll turn over to Dr. Marufo for that.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board. The reason that there were a number of vacancies at Conley is, we have the ability for teachers to transfer. So during a freeze, teachers can still transfer if the releasing principal and the hosting principal agree. So that often occurred. And so, while that's a good practice, we want teachers to be where they want to be, it also creates a domino effect. And so, that's ultimately what happened.
And what grades in particular, or was it just scattered across?
It was scattered. Today I talked to Dr. Schumpelt, principal at Conley, and he has a 4-5 vacancy along with the 5th grade vacancy. So he's filled 3 of his 5 vacancies.
Okay.
I'll provide you with an update on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, and that takes us to the next item.
Board policy revision schedule, and I've asked Joe Galvan to address the board on your policy revision schedule.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez. Today we're going to talk about your board policies, and let me begin with an apology. What I had intended to give you was an Excel sheet that has every policy in the district with the date of when it was last revised and the status of where it is to date, and that file basically imploded on itself. So I'm continuing to rebuild it. I will be sending it to you within a week or two so that you'll have that information as well. Plus, of course, all the policies are online. If we could go to the first slide, I want just to remind you that we have been still recoding all of our policies to match the system that's used by the National School Boards Association, the NEPN, which is basically a coded by letter system. And the last time we discussed your policies and the revisions was last November in 2015. Again, they fall within 12 sections, the A's through the L's, and if you ever need to find something that relates, for example, to students, they're most likely in the J section, and so on. So we still have these same 12 sections online. So the number of policies you have is in the orange, the first number. So for example, under A, the foundation policies that are like non-discrimination, you have 6 of those policies. And the white number then are those that are not converted. So if we go down the list, you'll see that you have 34 board policies. 1 has not been converted. Superintendent, they all have. Fiscal management of your 29 policies, 21 still need to be converted. The support services has 15 policies, and actually some of those fiscal management policies belong in support services, so they sort of tie together. Facilities planning and development has 2 policies. Personnel has 35. We did most of that work 2 years ago, and they still have 6 to go. We have 1 negotiations policy that needs to be recoded. Did I say negotiations? Mm-hmm. Okay. The instruction policies, 34, all have been recoded. Students has none to recode. Community has 1. And agency relations, we have no policies at this time. For a total of 220 policies, and 30 of them then need to still be recoded. So now, Bill, if you'll switch it, in those sections, the ones that then by topic, in your B section, you have 1 policy of conflict of interest that has not been brought to the table. In the fiscal management, as I explained, some of these really belong in your support services. And the topics are generally about fundraising, there's food service, the physical plant, change orders. So it's a mixture, and we're needing to split out those that are not really fiscal, but more belong to the operations side of the house. And then in section E, we have a pesticides discussion that the board has directed. They wanted some policy language about pesticides. I think our latest recommendation is that we're putting that, with your council's help, into an existing policy. So we'll be bringing that forward, I believe, in September. Right. And our acceptable use of technology needs to be revised. In our section for G, the employees, we have a collective bargaining policy that has never been recoded. And by the way, the ones with the asterisk are those that will need your legal counsel's involvement. Political activities by employees, tutoring by employees, resignations, the dismissal termination policy, and the grievance policy needs to be done. And then finally, I think we have our public inquiries and complaints. We have a good system and a regulation in place, but we really need to recode that to the current framework. And I believe that's all then. So then if we go back again, you have 30 to go, and if you'll, next slide, Bill, you'll see that where we're focusing our attention is in the D and the E's, because that's where most of the ones still need to be done. And then we'll go back and continue to pick up those in the personnel policies that we need to have converted. Then if we could switch the slide, when you do get my Excel list, I'll sort it for you in 2 different ways. One will be by letter code, so it'll just be alphabetical, and you can look at all of them. And then I'll send it to you again, sorted by the date of revision, so that when you go to look at them and you feel, even though it's been recoded, we really haven't visited it for 5, 8, 10 years, you may want to bring those forward before we're intending to do so. So at any time, we can then bring some of the other ones forward if you think that we need to do that quicker. And I think the last one is, if you have any questions or discussion, I'm here to help if I can.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Madam President, so we're going to systematically try to address the 30 on some kind of regular basis?
Those are the ones that we're taking as top priority.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Maybe 2 or 3 per meeting type thing, or?
Well, yes. It has been difficult to try to get that much done at one time, but it's our goal to step it up because there are so many. Mm-hmm. And I think now that we have Gabe at the helm of his division, that's really going to help a lot, because Terry was overwhelmed in the finance to be able to do that as well. So I think, sorry to put that on you, Gabe, but I think it's really going to help a lot. Yeah.
And it's good to let him know ahead of time that we're looking for that.
Surprise!
Just one more thing to do. Okay, any other questions or comments? So then we're good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam President, that takes us up to the 3rd item on the superintendent's report, and that's update on your superintendent search. To date, I'm pleased to announce that the Board of Education has received 26 applications. In my weekly that I sent you on Friday, or Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was, I had noted 20, and we actually have received 6 more. So we have processed 26 applications. The interim superintendent has reviewed the applications as required in your policy. Applicants who did not meet minimum qualifications established by the board have been eliminated. And there are 14 applications moving forward in the pool of qualified applicants. This pool of qualified applicants basically is now open to the Board of Education for your individual review. To accomplish this task, each board member will review the pool of applicants through September the 6th, as required in your procedures. The application review will occur in the superintendent's office, and Linda Thierry, who's here and helping me with this process, will set up a nice little place for you to come in at any time that you would like and sit and review these applications. We are developing a rubric that you can use so we all have a consistent process. And it's going to be very, very simple. It's basically looking at the criteria that you adopted at your board meeting, to remind you of that. We will ask you to look at the strengths of each of the applicants, any questions that you might have of any of the applicants, and whether you, as an individual board member, would think that this should move forward into a semifinalist pool. We will then chart all of your responses, and at the evening of September the 6th, when we go into executive session to review all of your responses, you will then have a discussion and determine who the pool of your semifinalists will be. So that needs to take place between now and September the 6th, and we will have a place set up for you, and I would recommend that you devote a little bit of time, because it's very time consuming to do this, and you will have 14 applications to go through. I do want to tell you, Madam President, members of the board, that we actually had quite a diverse group of individuals apply. In your pool of qualified applicants, you have 5 applicants who were from New Mexico. So that was good to see. 3 from Texas. And then we had applications from Minnesota, Georgia, Illinois, Alabama, New York, and Colorado. So there was quite an interest generated by your search. With that, Madam President, I'll stand for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. I know this was a lot of work, and we have been able to stay on track of our schedule as planned. Board members, do you have any questions? Mr. Frank.
Dr. Sanchez, could you go over what's going to happen after the school board determines the semifinalists?
When the school board determines the semifinalists, what we will do is the staff will engage in a review of what your attorney called an interrogatory. We'll engage in our interrogatory, which is basically we'll be calling each of the semifinalists. We'll be doing background checks on those folks, talking to them individually, checking references on them, and then providing that information to the board. We'll actually be inviting board members to join us in any of those interrogatives that you'd like to be part of. At that time, you will then make a determination who the finalist list is going to be. I don't have that exact date in front of me, but it's September, latter part of September. I think we've got a couple of weeks after the 6th.
How many do we pick?
That is going to be up to the board to make a decision. We'll go back into executive session. You will then determine who your finalists will be. At that time, the board will select the rather large interview team, and that's going to be, again, a decision that the board is going to have to make. I have been asking community members or informing community members, teachers, principals, that if they're interested in serving on the community-wide interview team, that they should send a board member an email. So you may have been getting some of those. If you would forward those to me, Linda and I will make sure that they get put in a database for you to select from. We also have the community-wide advisory group that are ready and to serve on this. Once we identify the finalists, we will be inviting them into the district. The board at that time, depending on who your finalists are, may want to send a group of people to that person's district where they're currently working to talk to teachers and parents and others, because you get a very different feel for that. We will schedule community forums where I'll be inviting not only parents, but teachers, principals, our EAs, our custodians, anybody that would like to come and listen to the finalists and give a presentation and engage in questions for them. And all of this, if all goes as planned, and you find somebody that you can't live without, you will make that notification on November the 1st.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I have one question. Approximately how much time should we budget to, or should we do it in 2 sittings?
Yes.
2 sittings.
Dr. Marufo, Linda, and myself, and Joe Galvan was our filter. And it took us, Linda, at least just to do check for minimum qualifications. We weren't going deep. Mm-hmm. Did they have their license? Did they, have this, this, and this? And it probably took us each about 5 hours just to go over the 26 applications that we received.
So, and when can we start?
You can start at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Or 9 o'clock tonight.
Okay, very good. We've got our work cut out for us. So, board members, we need to budget our time and plan to be here early and often.
You're open. We'll have a place set up for you to work.
Okay, thank you very much for all the work that all the cabinet has put into this. It's quite a lot. We now move on to human resources and to Dr. Marufo.
Thank you. Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, before you. The first item is the Certified Classified Employee Report for the month of July. In the certified category, we had 45 offers of employment, 3 administrators. We had 10 rehires. Again, remembering those people were temp terminates with us. We brought them back. We had 18 resignations, 2 retirements in the teacher category, 1 administrator, and 2 requests for leave of absence. In the classified category, we had 32 offers of employment, 24 rehires, and 5 resignations. I stand for any questions regarding the employee report.
It did not come up on the screen, so I'm just wondering what happened. But board members, do we have any questions on the report? Mr. Davis, did you have something?
I'm just wondering, for the new teachers, I mean, how do we know how many, how are they going to figure that out?
How many?
Do we need?
Oh, well, how many vacancies do we have right now, I guess?
So I'll cover that in my next presentation.
In the next one. So, okay, so why don't we go ahead and move forward then, okay?
Okay. So, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, in my next presentation, I have an update for you from Human Resources. And since my last report during the month of July, Next slide, please. We've added a few new administrators. Again, this rounds out and completes all of our administrative vacancies, with the exception of Lynn Middle School. That position is currently in the preparation phase. So as you can see, we've identified a new assistant principal at Desert Hills, Rachel Polk, a new assistant at Hermosa Heights, John Coates, a new assistant principal at Hillrise, Angela Armstrong, a new assistant principal at Lynn Middle School, Jenny Kletchka, a new assistant principal at Las Cruces High, Jennifer Hahn, our new chief financial officer who's with us today, Crystal Valdez, and a new associate superintendent for operations, Gabe Hawkes. Next slide. So when I submitted my presentation last week, we had 21 certified teacher positions still open. I'm happy to report that as of today, we have 13. We have 8 of those positions that were filled. And I do want to thank our school administrators for their attentiveness. At our retreat, we asked the school administrators if they had EAs or parents, or if they knew of anyone with an education degree or willing to pursue alternative licensure, to please let us know. And I know they just, the school administrators have just been amazingly wonderful in sending us names. We've been having many sessions with groups of people wishing to pursue alternative licensure. But as of 5 o'clock today, we had 4 K-5 general ed teacher positions that were vacant, 1 bilingual teacher position, 1 6 through 8 general ed teacher, 1 9 through 12 science teacher, 1 Spanish teacher still vacant, and 5 special ed teaching positions. At the current time, as of Friday, we had 24 EA positions open. As of 5 o'clock today, we have 12 positions open. Next slide. So when I talk about alternative licensure, we have of the staff or of the people that have been brought forward by our school administrators, I wanted to identify that we have applicants from varying backgrounds. We had one who chose to become a math teacher. She has a civil engineering degree. We have someone with an electrical engineering degree, someone who has an art degree, journalism, economics, kinesiology. We also, I did not put this on the slide, but I thought about it as an after the fact. We have a few EAs who have education degrees, and all it took was our school administrators to tap them and say, are you interested in teaching? And again, you know, we're just very happy that those potential candidates have come forward. And the next slide, I'd like to remind you, this is the same slide from the July presentation. During the month of July, I met with principals, namely the secondary principals, just to review their preliminary course enrollment sessions. And so in discussing with principals, we came up with a plan of action. We talked about how we would keep each other informed so we could take prompt action. As Dr. Sanchez has reported, we've already identified and placed additional staff in schools. We've had requests from some of our secondary principals to buy teachers planning and prep periods, and so that comes with a .14 extended contract. So we kind of started preparing. During the month of August, we're monitoring the first 10 and 20 days of enrollment by school. We're taking appropriate action as promptly as possible. Next slide. This guidance was sent out to school administrators from HR. It was just to help them look at courses with potential overloads, how to balance, how to even things out, and then in some cases when courses or classes just can't be evened out, we know there's a possibility that teachers may be reassigned according to their highly qualified status. And with that, Madam President, I stand for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marufo. Board members, do we have any questions on staffing? I have a question in regards to, I know that there was a large number of staff that was non-renewed because they were on temporary contracts, et cetera. How many of those positions were recaptured, or how many were they placed again? How many of them were placed this year?
So, Madam President, members of the board, if you will recall, during the July board meeting and this one, I specifically identified those in the employee report as rehires.
Okay.
So those were the temp terms that we want to return
Okay.
into our positions.
Okay, so, and they all came back then?
Most.
The ones that
Madam-
needed or wanted to come back?
Right, Madam President, the only ones that wouldn't have come back were those that we did not rehire for performance reasons.
Okay, yes, that's right. I did see that in the other parts. Okay, and are we getting huge overloads in high school right now?
So, Madam President, members of the board, our first run in looking at high school numbers today, and we were contacting principals, in what we understand is in the core classes, the numbers are fairly set. They're good, they're not overloaded. Where we're looking at potential overloads come in the elective classes.
Okay.
So we've identified by school, with the exception of Oñate, everything looks really great at Oñate. We are looking at potential overloads in the other 3 high schools.
Okay,
Madam President, too, in conversations with some of our middle school principals, they're indicating, and I didn't have time today to look at the dashboard with Dr. Marufo, but it seems that the electives, or what they call in the middle schools their exploratory classes, those are seeming to be large classes as well. So we'll be meeting as a cabinet to discuss what positions we can deploy, or FTE we can deploy school by school to relieve those overloads.
okay. Yes, Mr. Davis.
When you're picking the principals, who is picking the principals?
Madam President, Mr. Davis, we have instituted, since I took over, we are not hiring any administrators without the school, the teachers, the secretaries, EAs, whoever else is on those interview teams. It is a school decision, and usually what they will do is they will send the top 2 candidates to the superintendent's office, and the superintendent and the principal will actually, if it's an AP, will interview them, and the principal will select from the top 2. But we are going through an interview process at all schools, Mr. Davis.
Okay. So the staff is involved at each school. All right, so that moves us on to the status of new teacher retention.
So once again, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, I'm back. So at our last meeting, Mr. Castro asked about attrition rates. And so as we went back and began examining our HR data, we found that there were different layers of attrition rates. So one we looked at was beginning teachers, returning teachers, and administrators. So this evening, I'd like to introduce Jane Gurney from our Beginning Teacher Induction Program. Jane works with Pete Dinger, who's the secondary representative. Pete this evening has driven his daughter to Chicago, where she's been accepted into an amazingly wonderful program. So Jane's here to give us information.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the school board, and Dr. Sanchez. Today, Dr. Marufo and I are presenting a report on current data regarding the retention of new teachers. The next slide states that a new study was released by the U.S. Department of Education's National Center for Education Statistics in April of 2015. This new study identified a national cohort of new teachers and tracked this cohort for a period of 5 years. During the course of this study, data was gathered on those teachers who left the teaching profession during their first 5 years. Their reasons for leaving were then compiled in the report. The national study reported in the next slide that 10% of new teachers left after 1 year and did not return for a second year of teaching. 12% left by the end of their third year of teaching, and a total of 17% left after 5 years of teaching. This data is critical when compared to an earlier study in 2003, which stated a much larger number. Up to 50% of new teachers were leaving the profession during their first 5 years of teaching. The next slide shows that teachers from the cohort in the national study were polled as they left the profession, and their reasons for leaving were compiled. The number one reason for leaving was a salary of less than $40,000 a year. Currently in LCPS, our new teachers earn $34,000 or more. This equates to a bi-monthly take-home salary of approximately $1,007 before any deductions for health insurance. The second reason cited by the study was a lack of mentorship during the first year of teaching. Our new LCPS teachers received mentoring from a trained, site-based mentor, as well as Pete and myself as district mentors. And then the third reason cited in the national study was poor performance and the decision on the part of districts not to rehire. On the next slide, we'll now review LCPS data from our Human Resource Department. Last year, the 2015-2016 LCPS new teacher cohort included 61 first-year teachers. Today, 46 of these teachers are still teaching for our district. 6 of these teachers are currently teaching in other school districts, so over 85% of this cohort remain in the teaching profession after their first year. Some of the teachers from this cohort are no longer teaching for Las Cruces. 2 of these individuals were pursuing alternative license and chose not to complete the requirements. 4 were not recommended by rehire from the district. 1 took maternity leave and remained home. We do not know where 2 of these teachers went. They may have left the profession or they might be teaching somewhere else. Therefore, up to 14.8% of this cohort may have left the teaching profession. Our next slide reports the 2014-2015 cohort of new teachers. This cohort consisted of 91 first-year teachers. Today, after 2 years, 67 of these teachers are still teaching for Las Cruces, and 10 are known to be teaching elsewhere in other districts. 84.6% of these teachers remain in the profession today. 1 teacher let their alternative license expire, and 4 of these teachers were not recommended for rehire by Las Cruces. 1 is at home raising a child, and 2 returned to the university for graduate degrees. 1 is deceased, and we do not know where the remaining 5 teachers are today, but again, some may possibly be teaching elsewhere. Therefore, up to 15.4% of this cohort may have left the teaching profession. 3 years ago, the next slide shows the 2013-2014 LCPS new teacher cohort included 109 first-year teachers. Today, 69 of these teachers are still teaching for Las Cruces, and 21 of these teachers are known to be teaching in other school districts. So 82.5% of this cohort remain teaching after 3 years in the profession. Of the teachers from this cohort who are no longer teaching for Las Cruces, 6 were pursuing alternative license and chose not to complete those requirements. 5 were not recommended for rehire by the district, and 2 have remained home following maternity leave. We do not know where 6 of these teachers went. Therefore, up to 17.5% of this cohort may have left the teaching profession, since some of the unknown may have returned to teaching elsewhere. The next slide summarizes that the 2015 national study stated 90% of new teachers were retained after their first year. Our Las Cruces cohort data for 2015-2016 is slightly below these national statistics, with over 85% of our new teachers retained after their first year and still teaching. The national study also stated 88% of new teachers were retained after 3 years of teaching. And again, our Las Cruces data for the 2013-14 cohort is slightly lower, with over 82% or more still teaching after 3 years in the profession. Las Cruces Public Schools is very pleased to report that we are currently retaining new teachers at a rate close to these new national statistics. One of the
Madam
factors...
President,
Sorry.
if I could, just from a statistical standpoint, to add to this very, very fine report, I think you have to be careful when you're looking at these numbers. The national study was thousands of teachers, and here we're talking 90 teachers, 61 teachers. And so any shift really skews the data one way or the other, but you see that we're very, very close. So I just wanted to make sure that we were aware of that. We have I don't know, do you remember the number, Jane, in the national study?
I know it was thousands. I don't remember the
It was thousands, and here we're
precise number.
comparing 61, 91, so we're very, very close there. I think those are good numbers.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. We do know that one factor that assists Las Cruces Public Schools with the retention rate is the licensure advancement mentorship that our district provides. The dossier window reopened on July 15th. Since this slide was created, we've actually had 11 teachers submit their dossiers. All have successfully passed, which means that for this school year, 6 teachers will be moving to level 2 with their salary for this current school year, and we now have 5 who are moving to level 3. We've already scheduled dossier coaching sessions for this year, and that mentoring will be continuing as well. Thank you for this opportunity to present, and Dr. Marufo and I now stand for questions.
Okay, board members, do we have any questions? Okay, I have one question. We started out in 13-14 with 109, 91 for the following year, 62, I think, or around there for 15-16. What's our number this year? Do you know yet? No? Not yet.
As Dr. Marufo just shared with you and with
Yeah.
the prior report, it's changing hour by hour at this
Right.
point. I can tell you that we did have 37 identified new teachers under contract who came to
Okay.
Jumpstart Camp on August 4th and 5th. As of this afternoon, my elementary numbers were up to approximately 33 that are under contract. We know some are still under paperwork sessions in EPAR. Some are shifting from EA into teaching positions.
Right.
Our secondary numbers, we have about 29 or 30 at this point
Okay.
identified.
All right. I know that's a hard question. We're
So,
not
yes.
there yet. but-
And I can tell you our alternative licensure is going to be a large piece of that cohort this
Okay.
year, and we're very excited. The quality of the people stepping up to offer alternative licensure as a teaching pathway are very exciting people. We've been meeting with Dr. Marufo and conversations with them, and so it sounds like it's going to be a good year.
Good, good. Well,
Thank
it's
you.
good to know that we're still going.
We're
okay?
still going.
Thank you. We are in business. Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then that moves us on to instruction and Andrea Fletcher.
Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Sanchez, the House Bill 432, the School Athletics Equity Act, requires that every school in the state submit assurance that we're in compliance with Title IX to their boards for approval. So that's what we're doing here tonight. So as a district, we are assuring you that we are in compliance with Title IX and asking for your approval.
Okay, and did we actually see I guess we did.
I believe it's in your packet.
It's in our packet, yes. Okay, so then, do we have any questions? Joy is not here today?
Joyce is here too.
Okay. Okay, so then I will entertain a motion to approve the Title IX assurance form for secondary schools offering athletic programs.
One second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and all in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye, so the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
And-
you.
Did you want to say something, Dr. Sanchez?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so then that takes us on to finance and Ms. Valdez.
Madam President, you'll recall that we pulled item 2 off
Yes.
of the consent agenda, so Crystal will move to approval of bids and discussion, and I think you wanted to talk about the attorneys.
Yes. It would be the General Legal Counsel Services. And Mr. Dean is coming up. No? Okay, you're ready? So should I say exactly why I wanted to have it removed?
Yes.
Okay, so then, I'm not sure who's going to speak, so I'm just kind of like, okay, are we ready? The reason that I asked for this to be pulled up is that I looked carefully over the bid itself, and there are three legal firms, Cuddy and McCarthy, Walsh Anderson, and actually that name is not correct. It's Walsh Gallegos Anderson, and then the last one is Maudrell Sperling, and they were rated. And I just wanted to say that with the past year that we've had, I was surprised to see that Walsh Gallegos Anderson was rated so low, because they were the ones that helped us negotiate and move through the year. And it was not an easy year, and we moved through the year, and thanks to our legal counsel, we were able to do that. So I just wanted to stand up for Walsh Gallegos Anderson, not because I'm being made to do that in any way, but because I honestly feel that because of them, we were able to negotiate it successfully. I don't have any feelings about the others. I know that the district continues to use whichever one they want. I would like to make perhaps at another time, we would then select Walsh Gallegos Anderson as the board's legal counsel directly for future use. And the others will continue to be on the bid itself. But I thought we should vote for each one. Mr. Frank, did you have something in particular?
No, I had also your concern about the designation of Walsh Anderson not being Walsh Gallegos. Actually, I had really never seen the Anderson before.
I'm not sure if it's in there or not.
I know in the emails that I have received from them, there's no mention that I can see of Anderson.
So
I had a concern with that, and that's why I wanted it put on hold.
Okay. So then, I see Mr. Manning is here, so.
Madam President, members of the board, let me turn this over to our expert in the procurement side, because I want to make sure that we don't blow something up.
No, we don't want to blow anything
by
up.
taking different actions.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez, audience.
Oh, and if you could speak right into the mic so we.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Normally I talk louder than this, but I
Okay.
didn't want to scare nobody, so. The way we evaluated the bid, each committee member took the packages of all three respondents and went and independently rated the packages. Now, I don't know whether you're familiar with how people evaluate, but there's a thing that they call evaluated leniency. And each person looks at things differently. If you got a tendency to rate, if you got high expectations, sometimes you got a tendency to rate low. If you got low expectations, you got a tendency to rate high. And then there's that middle of the road. So what we do, me being the facilitator, I bring everybody back in and we talk about the ratings. So when we talk about the ratings, one person might have seen something a little different from what another person's seen it. So we kind of talk about it, and that might influence, or that person to maybe raise or lower the score. So, but we did the bid as a whole. When you make your recommendation for approval or disapproval, it needs to be as the whole bid package.
Okay, so we are not allowed to then do it
No, ma'am.
individually?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it went out for one consolidated package, and these are the three respondents. Mind you, that there were, the packages, the bid solicitation went out to 8 firms.
Right.
Only these 3 firms responded.
Well, and I appreciate the explanation, and normally I look at these bids, I read the evaluations, and normally I don't know anything about it, but in this particular case, I felt that the board was served well by Walsh Gallegos, and so I just had that opinion to express.
Right,
And I don't know if any of the other board members have anything to say in regards to this, but that's how I feel individually. And so, Did anyone want to say anything, or, okay, yes.
I feel the
Mr.
same way you do, and I think I saw Washington Gallegos be very responsive and timely. And the other thing I'm concerned about is when we have these three firms, and the board itself is using the legal counsel, and maybe the superintendent is using another one of the three, and sometimes there's conflicts. You understand what I'm saying? It happened this last time, and I wish we could avoid that. I think we need to use one under unusual circumstances. Then we can consider the other, some of the others. But as a rule, I think maybe a policy is to be changed so that this can be done.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez, I think the way that our committee was thinking about the bids, there's a diverse area of expertise that each law firm brings. HR might use, a certain company for, a certain thing, for employment issues. There might be Cuddy might be a firm that, has a lot of expertise in procurement law or construction law. So that's why we made the multiple award recommendation, not just for one particular thing, but because of the diverse experience.
And I know that this is continuing what we've always had. I think all three of them were in the previous bid. And how long is this bid for, or how many years?
It's 1 year with the option to renew.
Okay.
1 year up to 4 years. So we can have it as long as 4 years.
Okay.
But, if for some reason we don't want to renew a contract, we have that option to opt out of contracts.
Okay. So then when we vote, we need to vote for all three?
Yes, ma'am.
As one package? Okay. And then if we want to remove somebody, we can do that at a later date?
If we don't, Madam President, members of the board,
Yes.
Superintendent Sanchez, yes, we can, if we choose not to renew a contract, we can do so at the end of the term.
Okay. All right. So then, if nobody has any other questions, I will go ahead and make a motion to accept the bid, number 1516-06P, General Legal Counseling Services.
They're asking for a motion.
A motion, yes. That's what I'm doing.
So moved.
Okay, and a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second, yeah.
Okay, and should we do an individual vote, or?
I don't think you need a roll.
Okay, so then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And so the motion passes. I vote aye also. Thank you, Mr. Manning, for explaining it.
And Madam President, we apologize for not putting in the appropriate name there, Walsh Gallegos. And we'll see that change gets made,
Yes,
Crystal.
please, thank you. Okay, and so the second item that we were going to discuss, Mr. Frank?
Yes, so it's number 3, approval of property dispositions. If we could get that up on the screen.
Okay.
So it looks like we're disposing of $425,000 worth of stuff. And I was just wondering if we could be informed of how some of this, it might be usable and it might be sold or put up for auction, and if we could be informed of that process, and if possibly we could, down the road, get a report on how much of that $425,000 we have actually recovered.
Madam President, I know former Chief Financial Officer Terry Dean is going to respond before we put him out to pasture, but or he's putting himself out to pasture, I guess. We're not putting him out. Basically, I think the amount that you see there typically is the original market value of the equipment. It is not the depreciated value of the equipment.
Right,
and
of
Mr.
course.
Dean will kind of go over that, right?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, thank you for the opportunity to address this issue. The information that you do see in your packet, okay, for some weird reason under the governmental accounting standards proclamations, we record all assets at original cost. So when we dispose of them, we have to take them off the books at original cost, since we really don't depreciate them like a for-profit entity. Now that we've got the accounting jargon out of the way, I understand what you're asking, but most of the items that are being disposed of are items that the schools have gone through and have cleaned out the closets because the items they haven't worked for 5 years, and now they need the closet. And that's the reality of it, is they're cleaning the junk out that doesn't work. To go through and put quite frankly, if we were to go through and put for fair market value on that, we would be doing an exercise an academic exercise with no value. And we have plenty enough to we have plenty enough to do in the department. So I understand what you're saying, and if there are items that are reusable, then we do shift those around and make that information known. Now, one of the things that we do, just to let you know, as part of our process, as we get ready to dispose of items, we send a list, and I say we, it's done through our warehousing, our materials management. They actually send the list to the other schools and say, are there any items on this list that you need? If there's items on that list that appear to be being disposed of that should not be disposed of, then we go check that out. For example, a couple of years ago, we saw a riding lawnmower being disposed of that was about 4 years old. Well, our warehouse manager went to the school and found out that the reason they were disposing of it is because they lost the ignition key. He went and for 50 cents got an ignition key, and we gave that riding lawnmower to another location. So we do check out the items as best we can, but obviously this is a very long answer to give you. Is we do take every effort we can to reuse those items. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so then we now have to vote on this. And so I will now entertain a motion to accept the property dispositions as listed.
So moved.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So that passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dean, for the explanation. Okay, that takes us on to fourth quarter report.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez. There's several items in your packet, and the first is the fourth quarter report. These are the numbers that will be audited. We closed the books for the fiscal year 16, and there's a few items that I'd like to address in this report. It's composed of 3 parts. It's a cash report, basically the money in the bank, revenue, the money that's coming into the district, and expenditures, the money going out, to not put that in accounting terms. As of June 30th, our operational cash balance was $10.6 million. This was higher than we originally estimated, and we'll be doing a budget adjustment accordingly after the audit is final. Of the total cash within the district, it was $53.4 million. And you can see in the packet that was an increase of 6.6 from the previous year, and it was 3.5 approximately over what we budgeted.
Okay, and do we have any questions on the cash balance right now? Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Frank.
Before I get to that, under item number 5, I think there's just a typo in there that should be fixed. Executive summary attached is the district's third quarter report.
Oh, yes.
Yes, sir. I agree and changed my copy. We will definitely get that fixed. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question has to do with the cash balance. So, I mean, as of April, we were projecting 5.5 million of cash balance. And, you know, the board based a whole lot of decisions on that number. So as a result, we made cuts. We cut 49 positions. Programs were eliminated. So the question is now that we have this extra money, you know, I think, you know, we really need to, you know, make a commitment to go back and try to restore any programs that were cut and try, obviously, if we lost 49 positions, class size had to go up. So I think we need to take a really hard look at where we are and try to utilize this money that we didn't expect to have. And I also have a question. I mean, so in April, we're looking at 5.5 million, and then 4 months later, we're at 10.6. So I'd kind of like an explanation, a chronology of you know, where this $5 million developed. Where did it develop from, and you know, how did that happen?
And I'd like to add to that, I think, Mr. Frank as well, is it was 5.5 million in April. When did the district know that it was going to be 10.6? When did you know?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, if I may address this issue. When did we know that it was going to be 10.6? June 15th. That's the straight answer on that, not until the very last minute. So let me give you the chronological selection of cash balance. As you know, the previous year's cash balance of $4 million, we had to do is dangerously low, especially when we have $5.5 million that is due from PED as of June 30th. So $4 million is dangerously low in cash balance. In September, the superintendent asked me, says, give me a projection on cash balance. Well, that's 9 months out from the beginning of the year. One of the things that 25 years of doing this has taught me is to be consistent with your information until you know something for sure. Okay? So my estimate at that point in time is my advice to the superintendent is I believe that cash balance will come in at a minimum of $5.5 million. That's where we started the planning. Okay. As we went through the year and it came to the end of April or the end of March, and we were doing better projections, I came to the superintendent and I said, I believe that cash balance is going to be somewhere between minimum $7.5 million up to $9.5 million. Now, I still missed it, okay? I'll be quite honest. I still missed it. Now, you do have to realize that one of the principles of being an accountant is being conservative. And so we are going to underestimate that number. At that time, I told the superintendent, and I believe it was in a cabinet meeting, I said it looks like we are going to be anywhere between $7.5 million and $9.5 million. At that time, then the decision was made to work on budget at the $7.5 million level. Now, it was not until sometime in late May when some of the summer academies did not start developing out, and some of the items that we normally pay at the end of the summer or during the summertime, that we saw that those expenditures were not developing. $10.6 million was a surprise to me. I would have lost that bet saying that cash balance was going to come in at 10.5 or 10.6. I really felt like it was going to come in very close to 9.5, actually between 9.5 and 10 million. That's the, I guess that's the chronological development of the cash balance for budgeting.
And Madam President, Mr. Frank, to fast forward the question to July 1st, when, and notice Terry was speaking in the past tense when he was talking about interactions with the superintendent. We have started in the cabinet to scour the budget, and we have identified funding to replace essential positions where we see overloads, and to look at our programmatic responsibilities. The other thing that we're doing, and it's a high priority for your interim superintendent, is to look at potential, and this is a bargaining issue, so I can't speak a lot about it, it's just a bargaining issue, that I believe that teachers, not only in Las Cruces, but across the state of New Mexico, have suffered greatly by not receiving raises and for a long, long period of time. And so any of the funding, I have made it known to the cabinet, and I think the cabinet pretty much agrees with me, that any additional funds that we have, that they be poured directly back into teacher salaries or teacher supplies, because there are a lot of needs around the district as well as I go from classroom to classroom. So without getting too much into the bargaining issue, that's where we're focusing on now, but I can assure you that we have, and I think a report's coming up, Mr. Dean, looking at some of the, I'm sorry, he's past tense. Oh, it was like before July 1st, now it's like after August 15th. So it's really looking at some of the increases that were projected and what the real numbers are and what we've done to adjust some of those. Already given you at our retreat the number of positions that we've replaced at the high schools. Dr. Marufo, I'm anticipating we're going to have some real replacements to do in our kindergarten and our first grade classrooms. Some of the positions that we're going to need to replace in our middle schools and our high schools in those elective courses. My fear, to be perfectly frank with you, my fear is, are we going to be able to find the certified teachers that are of high quality that our children need and deserve? So, but that's where we're moving with that.
And Dr. Sanchez, I appreciate your explanation as well as for Mr. Dean. I remember talking to Mr. Dean back in the spring, and he did mention $7.5 million at that point. But $10.6 million, you know, we suffered mightily, and we put our staff through a lot of stress, I think, by making those cuts at the time, and we were told that that was it. We couldn't squeeze out another position. And I don't think that it just, I understand how Mr. Frank feels. I'm upset by it because we put our staff through stress, and then people were not renewed, and now we're looking for teachers. And that's like going backwards. It's not being forward thinking. And I know it's perhaps nobody's fault. I'm not blaming anyone. It's just, that's what we were concerned about, is all those cuts at the time. This board was concerned, and we did not like doing what we were told we had to do. Now magically the money appears. What concerns me is that the PED says, oh, look at Las Cruces, they have a lot of extra money, let's just go ahead and take some of that back. That concerns me. I don't want to lose any of that money. I don't want to lose any positions. And now we're looking for teachers. So this is the conundrum that the Board of Education is in. Mm-hmm. We just need to express ourselves. So I guess we're ready for the next, unless anyone has anything else to say.
It's just, because of that information we had, we were, forced to make decisions that, that we might regret right now. I mean, we were even hurrying up a decision to change all the schedules in the high schools without proper input from the stakeholders and considerations of what's educationally best for our students at a time after our students even selected courses, and it was all due to this money thing. And it's upsetting. I mean, I think, in the future, we need to have data that's much closer to what we're really dealing with.
So, just in closing, our priority is to return teachers to the classroom, to lower those class numbers, to put the teachers where they're needed, and reinstate programs that were cut. That's basically what we need. As far as, obviously school supplies, salaries are always a crucial. We just saw a report from Ms. Gurney saying that teachers that start out at 34,000 don't stay. So that's something that we need to address as well. So, I mean, we have many needs, and this money will be well spent at some capacity. I know we need to save some of it, but.
And Madam President and members of the board, I would share your frustration as well. As you recall, when I went back to teaching last year, and I'll just share a personal story, my paycheck, and I was half-time, and on every end of the salary schedule that I could be on was $768 for 2 weeks. And it got me to thinking about what we're paying our teachers, and if we think about young teachers who have families and who have food to buy and rent to pay, it really is quite a travesty in the state of New Mexico that we are not compensating our educational employees. And then when we think about our educational assistants, and when we think about our custodians and our food service workers, the wages that we're paying people who take care of the most precious commodity that our nation has, and that's our children, we just don't value it very much. And I hope that through your resolution process, Madam President, that you will adopt some resolutions that will address some of the frustrations that the board have, and I think frustrations that many of our teachers have, who have historically always gotten very low wages, which I think is rather immoral.
Okay, so then Ms. Valdez, I think we're ready to move on.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. I look forward I have the utmost respect for Mr. Dean and the information that he's passed on, but I look forward to working with you and being transparent with the board as well as the community, and to strive towards the goals that you have.
Thank you.
Another report in the packet is there's both the June, and we've kind of covered that with the final for the fiscal year. With regard to the July report, our cash balance and operational was approximately $7.2 million. And there were some specific items that the board had brought to our attention and asked us to dig deep into to identify maybe where there were some discrepancies, and I'd be happy to discuss that. I think we have a spreadsheet.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So there was a handful of items that there was percentages provided.
Right.
That what we did was we looked at actual expenditures from last fiscal year, and then the budgeted amount for last fiscal year compared to the budgeted amount for this fiscal year. And so, for example, in student support supplies, these are predominantly in the nurses area. And as you see, the budget from fiscal year 16 to 17 went up 107%. A good part of that increase is there is a mandated necessity to have certain emergency medication at school sites, and knowing that we have that anticipated cost, we built that into the budget. With regard to the board supplies, and I won't go through each one of them unless you'd like me to, but we do anticipate increased cost in diplomas, and so that went up approximately $2,000, and I see where the actual expenditures were pretty conservative. With regard to the office supplies, that budget from last year to this year actually went down. That was one of the areas that was decreased when we were trying to balance the budget. And so ideally that'll be evaluated, as Dr. Sanchez said, to put money back into those areas as needed. With the building, the upkeep of as some of the buildings age, we anticipate those costs to go up as well. And one of the things with regards to textbooks, the spending last year was conservative. The budget is pretty flat, but the expenditures last year were a little bit lower. The departments evaluate what type of adoption is coming up because some of them are more expensive than others. This year, we anticipate the English language arts adoption, and so there's a little bit of fluctuation from year to year on the expenditures. With regard to the park testing, we understand that the state is going to assist with some of that, so part of that budget might be able to be allocated to different areas of non-recurring cost. The cost of graduation ceremonies at the Pan Am, the facilities, the securities, we're anticipating increased cost on that as well. And another one that jumps off the page is the bus contractor. The portion that's not supported through the transportation fund from the public education department gets picked up through operational. So that number has continued to increase. It was high last year, I think about 800,000 or 900,000, and we're anticipating that to be 1.3. And so we're happy to dive into these and provide information. I'd like to point out, just for an example, with the duty personnel, these are our lunch monitors, either in the cafeteria or out on the playground. If you just look at the salary line, it looks like the expenditures were considerably lower than the actual budget. But what comes in at different lines is all of the benefits as well. So when we budgeted $526,000, we're budgeting for the salary line and benefits, which are different object codes, and that's not always as apparent as we'd like it to be.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Valdez. Do board members have any questions on this report? I think it's pretty clear that most things are needed, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and there is the furniture replacement program.
Mr. Dean was going to provide information on that.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, thank you for the opportunity to present this. This is one of the parting gifts, that I have. And for the past couple of weeks, I've been kind of like a very good-looking Yoda and passing wisdom on to my replacements. But anyway, as we talk about the furniture program, this is a program, and I apologize ahead of time. The older I get, I can't even look at puppies without becoming emotional. But this is a project that really I can become very emotional about. The issue is several years ago, I kept seeing budgets being submitted, and all of these schools were asking for furniture. And I would take it out of the operational budget because we just didn't have the resources to do so. And so after a couple of years of that, I thought, and there was one particular principal that was very persistent in their whining, and so I thought, okay, is this really a need? So I went to the superintendent and I says, we keep getting these requests. Where there's smoke, there's fire. There's something going on. So we didn't really even know where to start. So in working with Al Puentes, we had just started work with a new a company by the name of Contracts. And we kind of ran this idea by them and said, we need a way to measure, to see what the quality and the functionality of our schools, where are we? Where are we? If you put the big map like you have at the mall that says you are here, we didn't even know where here was. So we asked Contracts, since we had already partnered with them, is to help us determine a way, how do we do this? How do we determine which ones we need to do first? When we first got the data, when we first received the data as to the condition,
It was bad.
that we had let our buildings get, the environments for our kids, I cried. Closed my door and I cried. Harder than I am now, but so at least we had a method to attack. So far to date, we have actually replaced the furniture of 8 of our 29 schools. One of the things that you will see in your packet is you have, I believe that you have, Tina, a sheet like this. Over on the left-hand side, you can kind of see a plan. In the summer of 2017, the schools that we're looking to do. This is provided that we have the resources from capital outlay funds. There are no operational dollars used for this. This is being done through HB 33. Typically, HB 33 funds is how we've been funding this project. This is one of the projects that I felt so strongly about that I went to the superintendent and I says, I really want to run this project.
If I could interrupt you just for a second, it says no bond money on it.
Okay, yes, ma'am. This is, and thank you for mentioning that. If we do not insert, and that's a decision that has to be made later, if we do not just insert any bond money, we should be able to be finished with the plan by 2023.
Okay.
Okay, if we do not insert any bond money. If we do insert bond money, say enough to do the Mayfield and Oñate, then we can be finished 2 years sooner than that. So it's just part of the plan. How do we want to work the plan?
The other thing, Madam President, members of the board, if I could add, there's 2 schools missing off of here.
Yes.
And those schools will be added. That's Rio Grande Preparatory Institute and
Mesilla Valley Leadership Academy.
There you go. Good job.
And I have already talked to our partners at Contracts, and they're going to be jumping on those. So, Madam President, without further ado, I would like to bring up Bill Latham, who is the president and CEO of Contracts. They are going to be going through a name change later on, as well as the people that we work with very closely, and that's Ann Kitten. That's not a stage name, that's her real name, and Brandon Hillman.
Well, good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Dr. Sanchez, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and to give you a brief on the progress of the Environments program that has been termed Enhanced Educational Environments, or E-Cubed, as a cute name to refer to it. As a means of briefing the process on this, in 2013, we conducted a survey of the environments in the Las Cruces Public School District in accordance with a rubric that was established with district personnel, aimed at assessing the utility value of the interior furnishings in the facilities in elementary and middle schools throughout the district. A team spent a little more than 10 days in the district and provided a report that Mr. Dean referred to earlier that showed the condition assessment of the schools and their rating according to that rubric, as well as a budget projection for what it would take to bring the schools to a particular quality standard that was established by the district. So the methodology that we proposed has been used successfully in a number of other districts throughout the country in bringing the quality standard of their interiors in alignment with their educational vision for the district. The program began with a put in 2013 that all elementary and middle school cafeterias were brought to the same quality standard in one large put so that everybody knew this was serious. This was not a fly-by-night program, and it helped the entire community settle down in terms of where their place was in line, strategically speaking, since it was a needs-based assessment. Since it's impossible to bring all of those environments or bring you to all of those environments and have you hear all of the stories that have since happened, we are going to provide a brief video that summarizes some of the progress, and then I would turn it over to Brandon Hillman, who is the National Program Director for these programs, to give you a little bit more technical data on the program. I will say it is a great privilege to have the opportunity to come to Las Cruces anytime. My family was originally from El Paso, even though I reside in Florida now, and I enjoy the opportunity to eat good Mexican food because we have none in Florida to speak of, and so I've enjoyed that while being here. So it's, again, great privilege to be here. This is a video. We'll roll that and let you see what your district is saying about this program. Maybe.
Go back to the previous slide, Bill.
It'll work.
There's the bill in the...
So Zia, when I came here and the years that I've spent before the modernization with the new furniture, we were very run down. We have an older building anyway. We had broken furniture, the old style desk that had the desk and chair attached with the students, and the situation was heavy and bulky, and trying to move that around in quick situations was very, very difficult.
Well, I think the aesthetics to the rooms were kind of a dark, and there were mismatched furniture. People had shared and, begged, borrowed, and stole to put classrooms together. And it was old, and it was falling apart, and it had probably outlived its life by many, many years.
I think that the new furniture has been able to allow for some opportunities to have different perspectives in the classroom, different ways to set things up. It's opened up opportunities for collaboration with students. Beforehand, it just was very, very limited.
I think the best part is the library. It's beautiful. Here's the difference. I never came into the library in 6th grade because I think unless I had to come in for language arts and pick a book, I was never in here. You come in here before school, during lunch, it's packed with kids. There's so many different things that the library can do for you other than just be a place to read. And I think that atmosphere makes all the difference.
This space means the world to me. It never used to be a place that kids would come to just to see what was going on. But now kids just come in to see, what are you doing in here? What's in here? What are the kids who are in here doing? So that's great, because if I can get them in here, I can get them interested.
Well, back then, we used to always make fun of our school because on how it looked and how other people thought about it. They used to always call us the ghetto school, and we would always think about it because, well, we are. But with the new furniture, we don't feel like that anymore. We're comfortable with coming in and out of the school saying we're proud to be the Lynn Cougars and not the ghetto school.
We have been counting down the days until we become more modern, especially way out here in Doñana. When you walk into a building that's new and has newer furniture and everything, it makes a difference. You want to come to school. You want to be there. You want to be in that space.
As this stuff continues to deteriorate, as it continues to get even older than it is now, as we continue to basically make use of the warehouse for all our furniture needs, we're not creating the best environment for student learning. I will not be able to create 21st century learning spaces that other facilities can create. And that will have a direct impact on not only my retaining students here at Mayfield, but on the learning of the students that come.
You know, teachers, I think morale is kind of low right now, where they feel like I need this to be able to do my job and I don't have it. And you know, furniture is a start. If you have the right furniture and they can arrange it nicely, that sets the stage for their learning.
What's more important than our youth? How do we not invest in them? I mean, and I can even get emotional about it because I think we spend so much money on things that we never see the value of. I think it really speaks to students, it speaks to our community when they can look at a facility like this and say, we did this for our children. And what's more important than that?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, good evening. My name is Brandon Hillman, and as Bill said, I'm the Director of Modernization for Contracts. I just want to take a brief opportunity because process has been so critical to making what you just saw, the stories in that video, successful. And so I just wanted to briefly touch on what the Las Cruces Public Schools approach has looked like to this program. And really everything that has happened has been driven by the vision to give every student and teacher in this community access to a world-class learning environment. That helped develop the framework that was then used, as Mr. Dean mentioned, by our team to go through and evaluate nearly every single learning environment in this district. From there, we were able to recommend priorities, just as you would with any facilities assessment, focusing specifically on the functional interiors about what we would recommend as being the highest priorities right on down to some of the lower priorities so that a master plan could ultimately be developed for the modernization of these learning environments. And from there, over the last 4 years, we've gone through this annual plan where we've identified the buildings that are going to be modernized in each particular year. And then we go through and we actually execute on that annual plan for the buildings that have been identified, going through and first doing site-specific budget planning to look at what it's going to cost to modernize each one of the facilities that have been identified for a given year. We then work with the sites to develop the design specifications, what the furniture is actually going to look like, and how it fits in context of the district's learning environment vision. We then move into the procurement of the furniture, followed by the project management services, making sure everything gets installed on time, accurately, that all the expectations by the school district have been met. And then we also look at an asset management component. We look at what pieces of furniture are going to be coming out of that facility, how those can be recycled or ultimately repurposed to be used elsewhere in the district. And then we go through an annual review process to look at everything as far as how is the progress coming along in the overall modernization initiative. And a big part of that annual review, just as Mr. Dean mentioned, is looking at how we're tracking on each one of the buildings to moving them towards the district standard. And again, as Mr. Dean mentioned, we to date have 8 facilities that have been brought entirely up to the district standard, 3 of which are elementaries on here. And I'm proud to say that every single building has been impacted in some way to date. The cafeteria modernization in the first year was a big way to make sure that every school was impacted early on in this program. And we've done 4 of the middle schools. There's just a few left that remain there, which is nice because being a little bit larger, it's able to go through a little bit more quickly on some of the elementaries and do a few more of those in a given year. And then obviously the high schools, Mayfield and Oñate, still remain to be done, but have seen some incremental modernization to date. And I just want to leave you with one other survey that our company did with the district. We actually went in to Las Cruces High School prior to the modernization in 2015, and we did a poll of the students, looking at things like room design, connection to space, technology, aesthetics, and comfort. And we polled them on how they would rate the current learning environments, and you can see some of the results on the slide here with the columns in blue there. And one of the biggest takeaways as I look at this is, first and foremost, when we came back after the modernization, we saw an increase from the students in every single one of those areas that was measured. And the most exciting part of that as I look at those statistics is that the lowest rated after the fact is still higher than the highest rated before the fact. And I think it's a pretty exciting that not only has it made a difference to the teachers and the parents and some of those that you saw in the video, students are responding to it and appreciative of it as well. So I'll open it up to questions and just leave you with a quote from Socrates that the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. And I think that's really been at the heart of what we've been trying to accomplish, is giving the teachers the tool to be successful so that the environment is not a barrier to interacting with students, but rather a tool that can help increase and develop some of those relationships. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, do we have any comments or questions?
It's a 1 to 5 scale?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, and, yes, Mr. Costa.
Has there been any empirical studies to regarding what we're looking at? What we hopefully will do is improve learning. Any studies that indicate that this environment does have a big impact on learning, and to what extent?
Sir, I'm going to let my colleague Bill answer here.
A study that came out of England in the last 3 years that was conducted on a holistic approach to learning environments found that a 16% impact in achievement was attained by a holistic environment that was of certain criteria, and it was a multi-level analysis. To put that in context, studies show that about 50% of how a student is going to perform is what they walk in the door with. Their socioeconomic background, their home life, and those type of things. The next most impactful thing is the teacher themselves. Most studies will put that anywhere between 20 and 25% of student performance can be directly attributed to the quality of the teacher. That doesn't leave but about 25% left that we can monkey with and do anything about. So the study positing about 16% impact that the environment can have is actually a very large chunk of the next thing you can do to impact academic achievement and well-being in a school. And I'd go a little bit further to say, when you are dealing with staff retention issues, when you are dealing with in some sense, I can't pay you what you're worth, but I can put you in an environment that treats you as a professional. I can put you in an environment that doesn't fight you every day on the things that you're trying to do. And so while most people don't enter the teaching profession for money. They enter the teaching profession for much more noble purposes, and sometimes it grinds them down. Right. And so being in an environment like some of them that you saw that are waiting for their environments versus those that have their environments can be all the difference in retaining a teacher, which is one of those things that you spent quite a bit of time on here today. But there are studies, and we're happy to provide those studies for review. They're not overly complicated to read through, and there are a number of them that show sort of the impact.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? I'm just wondering why we didn't have this presentation back in 2013, or did we? It started in 2013? I'm just...
Madam President, I know there were some presentations, but I don't remember which one exactly.
Was there, from this particular company, I appreciate your coming out and presenting. Your video was very compelling, and I agree with everything. But I'm just wondering, I hadn't heard this company before.
Actually, yeah. Go ahead.
Madam President, we really didn't do a formal presentation. I know that we talked about it multiple times, board retreats and different things, but we really didn't do a presentation at that time. And to be quite honest, I asked Bill and Contracts to come out to approach the board because this is a project that has been very important to me, and I don't want to see it die when I leave.
Okay, I see. And I'm just wondering, I mean, they did such a good job of sharing. I mean, it's compelling. That's all I have to say about it. And I know we've talked furniture before. I know that, but I hadn't heard about all this. This is another explanation here.
Madam
So-
President, members of the board, I also had the opportunity today to visit with these two gentlemen for a while, and we actually talked about how we could better engage the student voice. Because actually, if you look at that comfort indicator there, what would students say? How would they modify, or how would they change the environment? So they're very, very open to that, and they've actually established a process already to actually engage the student voice
That would be
much
good,
more
yes,
in their
definitely.
design work.
Yeah, the particular survey that was actually designed in cooperation with a lady who has her PhD from Washington and has done an engagement scale. So the engagement scale that she has developed as part of her PhD work, when I came across it, I said, you don't have the environment included in your engagement scale. And she said, you're right. And so we actually partnered a couple of years ago for her to develop that. And so it's a validated study. So the statistics you were looking at aren't just opinions as much as they are validated questions that are balanced in such a way to give a realistic picture of what students' experience was like before and after. It would be our recommendation that at any point that you want to see that for a particular facility, in terms of the efficacy of the program, that be conducted before and after, because it as you get new board members and as you make the case to the community about why this is important, it's good to have data. It's good to have studies. It's good to have something. The video is compelling because your people are compelling. That you noticed we didn't talk on the video at all. That was your team and your district talking. That's what made it compelling. And the same would be true for any statistics that we could establish.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your coming today. Okay. That takes us on to Mr. Huckes, Operations.
All righty. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. In your packets today, you'll see our monthly construction update dated August 16, 2016. And with that, we stand for questions.
And board members, do we have any questions on construction? Looks like things are gearing up again. That's
Yes,
all
ma'am.
I have to say.
Yes, ma'am.
And, okay.
All righty. So the next item I have, Madam President, members of the board, is our Valley View parking lot design presentation. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Terry Dean, who's been working on the project, to report out to us. Thank you.
One more time.
Last time, I promised for tonight. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sanchez, one of the items that has came to our attention, and Bill, let's get to the next slide if you would. One more. One of the items that has come to our attention as we were developing budget is that the church across the street from Valley View Elementary School was going to start charging us we were estimating $18,000 a year to use their parking lot. Now, one of the things that we had looked at this as we started examining the need for additional parking is we needed approximately 30 additional parking spots just to take care of the staff. And if the people parked across the street at the church, so on your screens, you'll see, and for the slide, and I'll try not to zap Mr. Davis in the top of the head with the light, is we're talking about this area across here. If our staff parks across California Street, then they're still having to play Frogger with the traffic as they come into our building. So, and we have had vehicle accidents with student and with staffs as they cross California Street. So one of the things, as I went to DWG Architectural Design and was working with Gabe Sandoval, who's here, is so if you have any technical questions, we can get him up. Is we were looking at the area on the north side of the school, and actually this is Gabe's idea that came up with this. Gabe Sandoval, no, Lucero. I'm sorry. He's behind me. He's kicking me, saying wrong last name. Is this area right here on the north side of the playground? We are so landlocked in that school. There's really nothing else we can do other than buying houses. The area, if we put a 30, Gabe, is it 30 or 28? 30, okay. we have an area right here for 30 parking spots. Now, what it's going to do, there's a swing set right here, and that would cause us to relocate the swing set from the east side of that parking lot to over here to the west side of this existing playground equipment. Then we are going to lose 2 trees. Now, these are not the biggest trees on the playground. The other option we have is to perhaps put this on the very west side of the playground, and we'd be losing lots of trees. And being in southern New Mexico, losing trees is not a good thing. But anyway, this would have us removing 2 trees in this area. The cost to do this, now the only thing that we have incurred as far as cost is design cost at this time. The cost to do this is going to be approximately $100,000. We believe that is on the high side, inclusive of design. We will need to work with the city and get the permits for the construction, as well as the entry from California Street. Madam President, members of the board, that is the extent of my knowledge. And I will bring Gabe Lucero up here in just a moment, and if you have any questions that are more technical in nature.
Board members, do we have questions? I only have one question, when you're a visitor, where do you park?
Madam President, members of the board, that is it, Dr. Sanchez, that's a very good question. Yes. This parking lot right down here is still going to be available. The parking lots on the opposite side of the school, on the north side of the school, are the staff parking. The parking lot right here is going to be, is where the bus drop-off is, and the bus drop-off is on the north side. But this is the parent drop-off and visitor parking. Visitor parking is still available on both sides of the street on California Street also.
So we can't park at Immaculate Heart anymore?
No, ma'am.
Pay $141,000.
Okay, well.
It says that.
Yes, I guess so. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Lucero, for being here. We appreciate it.
I'm glad you got his name correctly.
Okay, so then we move along, excuse me, to old business. We have the review and approval of response letter to Senator Steve Pierce regarding development of the transgender policy. So have all the board members seen it?
Yes.
Okay, so then we're just going to go ahead and, this is what Andre was talking about, and we're addressing it. Do you want to say a few words about it, Dr. Sanchez?
Madam President,
I don't
members of the
see it
board,
anywhere.
I just want to let you know
Here
that
it is.
there was a typo that has been corrected in the official copy that you'll be signing if you adopt this letter. But Madam President, I didn't know if you wanted to read it so the
Okay.
audience, because we don't have a copy to.
Okay, so then it is addressed to Congressman Pierce. Oh, here's the official copy. Thank you for your letter dated June 27th, 2016, regarding the United States Department of Education and the United States Justice Guidelines regarding students' use of restrooms and locker rooms. Our district will continue to monitor carefully all actions taken by the Supreme Court in regard to this issue. The Las Cruces Public Schools has policies and procedures in place to address the safety and security of all students. Furthermore, the Board of Education appreciates your strong support to increase the decision-making authority of local boards of education. Sincerely, and it would be signed by me. Board members, any questions or comments?
I have a comment. I was flying yesterday, and when I got my cell phone out again, I had a message from a woman in, I wrote the name of the, Southfield, Michigan, regarding this controversy, saying that she had seen and how she got the
Las Cruces Bulletin, I'll not know. But she had seen an article about it, and she wanted to commend the board on our stand for what we had decided to say to Mr. Pierce. So
Okay.
we're getting worldwide, or at least countrywide recognition.
That's right. I know people in Michigan are paying attention here, believe it or not. I'm just wondering if we didn't need to add our thank you but no thank you somewhere. That came from Mr. Castro. We appreciate your input, but we're fine. And I don't know if, I know Dr. Sanchez did this letter for us. How does the board feel about that?
Well, I think it says thank you, but no thank you.
Okay.
I don't think we need more.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good with to go? Okay. So then I will go ahead and I need a motion to accept the letter as written and as read to you today.
Let's add one more, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
One more comment?
Any reference to our President Obama's executive order on that? Or what was it?
It doesn't refer anything. It's just the Department of Education.
Okay, all right.
That, Madam President, Mr. Castro, it really is an inferred reference to the President through his Department of Education and his Secretary, and of course the United States Justice, the guidelines that were issued by the administration. But it really is, taking a careful look and monitoring the actions as the Supreme Court takes action on this. But I think the interesting issue that we want to really hit home with Congressman Pierce is that he seems to be making a very strong statement that he's in very strong support of more local control for boards of education, which I think, in listening to this board's interaction over the past year or so, has been very much about more local control. So I think that might be an opening in the door as they start to look at the regulation writing for ESEA, the Elementary Secondary
Success Act, Student.
ESA.
mhm.
Yeah, that one. And Elementary Secondary. Every Student Succeeds Act, thank you. And that really this might be a place where he may be able to stand up and say, we need more local control granted to boards of education elected by their communities, and a decreasing emphasis on more state control. So that's why I kind of wrote that sentence.
Okay, so then we'll go ahead. I need a motion to accept this letter and it be sent to, Representative Steve Pierce.
I so move. Second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the letter will be sent. Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, for saying it so nicely, because I'm sorry, I would not be so polite.
I tried to capture
I
Mr.
know.
Castro's thanks, but no thanks.
Thank you. We're now moving on to the second reading of policy EEB, driving school-owned or leased vehicles, and that's Mr. Stout.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez, with respect to policy EEB, I stand for questions. Would you all have any
Okay.
questions you would like to ask?
I have none. Does any board member have any questions? Well, it looks good. We're ready to go.
And
Okay,
we'll move this on to
one more reading.
one more reading. It'll be posted on our website.
No comments from the public?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Very good, thank you.
And then that we move on to the board goals and regulation, and I think Ms. Galvan is going to take that one on. It's good to move just a little bit. Thank you again, members of the board and Dr. Sanchez. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the discussion that originated at your board retreat about BA, policy BA, which is about your board goals, and the corresponding regulation BA-R. You retained your goals, which are the four are student success, communication, trust, and human relations. The third one is budget and facilities management, and the fourth, quality in human resources. And at your request, we did capture some of the comments that you made during the retreat in terms of giving more descriptive descriptive language to be able to support the goals that you have. So if we could take a look at that on the policy itself, you'll see the new language is underlined. It does show under the position statement, we've included the words vision and mission because they do go together. In B, it does talk about being inclusive of stakeholders' input. I think all of you talked about how important that is to your goals and your processes. C is to be sensitive to the challenges of poverty in our community and embracing the cultural diversity. D is talking about addressing the needs of the whole child and not just on curriculum or assessments. And I think, Dr. Sanchez, were we going to recommend that it be, is that in the regulation or this one, the assessments?
Regulation.
The regulation, okay, thank you. And then if we switch to the regulation, you will see that there are additional statements that fall under student success. The first one, again, meeting the needs of students who have different backgrounds or come from poverty. The second one is developing the goals as you do right now with the superintendent, but also being inclusive of stakeholder input, including students and school-based staff. And then we put particularly when the decision-making impacts school operation and processes. And then we cited your board policy of shared leadership. C was to make sure that we're assessing academic growth. And I think we're going to recommend that it say shall be based on multiple measures instead of factors, if that's all right. Then under communication, we list that we want a cross-section of stakeholders to be involved with your goal development. B is that there's a continuous process of two-way communication between school staff and central office. And C is that whenever possible, your district committees should be open and transparent. If you flip the page, please. The third goal, I don't believe we had any additional changes. Can you switch the page to the next goal, Bill? Thank you. And budget and facilities, we did add that information related to the development of the budget should be transparent to everyone. So those are the recommended changes that we have. We will send the goals and the regulation to the district staff, get some input perhaps, and then your next meeting we will be recommending second reading and approval. Okay. Board members, do we have any comments? Mr. Frank?
Looks good.
Okay. And the only thing I see that I don't see anywhere is the issue of morale. Morale? Yes. I don't know where it would, is it in there? In the first one. I didn't see it, so that's why I know the word itself, morale, is not in
Okay.
either one. If you want us to specifically use that, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It was added to goals.
Into the goal. Oh, that's right. Could you go to the next page, Mr. Fox? Let's see. Let's see. It's going to be, B is really citing that you have to be inclusive of people when you're making decisions that impact them. That really has an impact on morale. But let me look at communication, if you could scroll, please. I don't know if there was something in that. I guess it was all about communication between school and. It's implied, but it's not in there.
I think, Madam President, members of the board, if you're looking for that, and I think it's a good thing to include, it may be under 2B, where there is continuous improvement, two-way communication between school staff and, but it doesn't, well, no, it doesn't really fit there. What I'm going to suggest, Madam President, given the lateness of the hour, that Joe and I will meet together tomorrow and kind of scour this to see where we can address that issue of staff
I'm wondering
morale.
if it would go under human resources. I'm just
Maybe
wondering.
there.
Yeah. Well, and that's fine. You go ahead and do that. I
We'll do
think.
that. And then what we'll do is we will send a copy of that to the board, so you have it ahead of time. And because this is on first reading, so you'll have your second reading opportunity in September.
I thank you for including all our additions, though. You've pretty
Certainly.
much captured everything. I think that was the only thing that I saw that wasn't on there, okay?
I'm also thinking, Madam President, it would be good, we're having a reception for high school students tomorrow. I hope that many of them will come. But it may be good to give them this policy and have them
That would
respond
be
to
a
us. It may be
great
a good
idea.
exercise for them, Miss Wendy.
Yes, we need to add that to the agenda, I think. Okay, thank you, Ms. Galvan.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us now to this interesting packet that we have here. The New Mexico School Board Association call for resolutions. Each of us has a copy of each board member's requested resolutions. And could you go ahead and we'll start with Mr. Frank, if you could talk about yours. Yours are purple, I think.
Thank you. My first one has to do with promoting civil public discourse. I don't think I should read the whole thing, should I?
No, but
I think I'll read the first paragraph.
Go ahead.
The Las Cruces Public Schools Board of Education recognizes that public discourse today is all too often composed of divisive attacks rather than meaningful consideration of important public issues, which leads to ineffective public decision-making and citizen frustration.
no, over
So,
here, Ed.
this resolution calls for the New Mexico, for the New Mexico School Boards Association and the New Mexico Legislature to adopt a resolution that encourages a more civil discourse in all aspects of governance.
Okay, that's a good one. Go ahead and continue.
Okay, my next one?
Yes. And if anyone has any questions, just jump in.
Well, you know, when the legislature is in their 60-day session, it causes major frustration for school districts to approve budgets. So this resolution, the idea of it is that the budgetary matters that the legislature deals with when they have the 60-day session be done earlier in the school year, specifically in November, so that school districts can get financial information in a more timely manner and make much better decisions about developing their school budgets for the next school year.
That's a really good idea. I
So-
like it.
And that's pretty much it.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay. And Maury, can you tell us about yours? I'm just going in order here.
Okay. The first one is on the subject of bullying. And be it resolved, part is the Las Cruces Public School Board of Education supports policies and programs that addresses the prevention, intervention, and elimination of bullying. And be it further resolved that the Las Cruces Public Schools Board of Education requests that the 2017 legislature provide funding for the development of appropriate curriculum with accompanying professional development for teachers, parents, and students on the subject of bullying.
Okay. Another one?
And the other one is requesting the New Mexico legislature to revise the educator effectiveness evaluation. And we're all, I'm sure, in agreement with that, but now therefore be it resolved that the Las Cruces Public School Board of Education respectfully requests that the New Mexico legislature adjust the teacher evaluation components distribution from 50% student achievement, 25% observation, and 25% multiple measures to 50% observation, 25% student achievement, and 25% multiple measures.
And you have one more, I think?
And then,
I think it's in the front there.
yeah,
There's one more.
The very, it's over here, on that side.
I think, oh, this
Right
one.
here, no, here. Is it that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
The third one, on the subject of requesting the New Mexico legislature to study and take action on the effects of high-stakes testing on education of the whole child. And that now there be it resolved that the Las Cruces Public School Board of Education calls on the governor, the Secretary of Education, and the state legislature to re-examine the system based on multiple forms of assessments, which does not require extensive standardized testing, more accurately reflects a broad range of student learning, and is used to support students and improve the school. Basically, that's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Castro. They're all good. Mr. Davis?
Okay. The first one was the requesting the New Mexico legislature increase salaries for certified teachers. That they really haven't had a raise in like 5 years. And this is looking towards rectifying that problem. Now, therefore, we resolved that the Las Cruces Board of Education formally requests that the 2017 legislature provide the necessary funding to increase the current base salaries of Tier 1, 2, and 3 by $10,000.
Okay.
Okay.
The next one?
The last was request for adequate funding to provide transportation for our students. The problem has been that we end up having to spend our own money rather than have them put it into the budget so that we can do it. So I just want to pass it on to the governor, the board association, the public school of education, the legislators committee, the legislative education study committee, chair of the Senate education committee, and the chair of the House education committee. We're trying to get them aware of the problem, so that's what this call resolution is for.
I'm wondering, do they consistently underfund all 89 school districts?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Just wondering.
I don't know, in the olden days, they used to fund the education first, and then they go to the general fund. And now they've thrown it in with the general fund, and I don't know that they appreciate the needs of the education. And if they need to step forward and recognize that education is very important about the future of New Mexico, then we'll have to get them to address that. So,
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
One more.
I have
Do you
one
have
more.
another one? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Not a roll, no.
Yes, I see it now.
Oh, yeah, this had to do with the land, what do you call it,
Land grant and severance tax permanent fund.
permanent fund, yes, is to request the maintain funding for the New Mexico land grant and separate tax fund at 5.8. They've been reducing it, and they need to stop that and get it back up to where it belongs to address the problem, so.
Exactly.
What is it at right now?
It is now, it's currently, Terry, I think it's at 5.0%.
Really? Sheesh. Okay.
And it's gone down from 5.8.
Okay.
And the legislature over, and I don't remember how long ago it was, started to reduce the percentage that we would pull from that severance tax fund to fund public education, to Mr. Davis's point, where, and I'll use his words, in the old days, because both of us know the old days well, this public education funding used to be 52% of the state budget. And I believe now, Terry, it is approximately 43% of the state budget.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ms. Hall?
Okay, this, especially with dealing with what Liz is dealing with finding teachers, is very appropriate because there may be teachers in our district or teachers around the town who would like to go back to work, having retired, and this is asking the legislature to revise the conditions to return to work, for teachers to return to work in less than the 12 years that it's, 12 months that it's stated now, which would maybe help in that HR problem.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hall. And I had submitted several resolutions. The one requesting the New Mexico legislature to enact gun reform to protect children. And the reason this came up is because we had a student that committed suicide. She was 19 years old, went to a gun shop and shot herself. It's just boom, boom, boom. No in-betweens. And so it seems that we need to put some barriers along the way so that it's not so easy. And just for one of the things that's in here, the most recent mass murder in the state of New Mexico is June 11, 2016 in Roswell, New Mexico, when one adult and 4 children ages 3, 7, 11, and 14 died as a result of gun violence. So we all know the problem that exists. It's calling for sensible gun legislation to protect our students. That is what we're supposed to do. The second one that I have is to encourage innovation and expansion of early literacy experiences for 3- and 4-year-old students, modeled after the successful K3+ program. And this is, again, to start funding universal preschool for all our students. The third one is requesting the New Mexico legislature to recognize the importance of a full-service community school. We are implementing a community school at Lynn, and to get some recognition for the effort and to possibly look at this as a way of addressing the real needs of our students, the whole child versus just the curriculum and the other pieces that go with that. So the next one is...
Madam President, I'd like to compliment you on this one too, because I think this is rather transformative. And I'll read the words because we tried to capture this from your discussion at our retreat. But not only to look at support for community schools, but you actually talked about the research on community schools as an important transformative effort to engage high levels of academic outcomes through significant behavioral and social supports. And that was a research study that you gave us. And we tried to capture that for you because we now have turnaround in the state of New Mexico.
Right.
We have lots of initiatives to turn things around. We're always turning life around. But community schools, when you look at the research, really is about transforming school culture and providing supports for social and behavioral supports.
There's another piece to it, is that rather than looking at poor children as being in a deficit,
That's right.
we're looking at a child is not, we need to fix you, but rather, how can we help you succeed? It's another way of looking at students and being proactive in every capacity. And you know, we ask our teachers to do too much. So this kind of alleviates some of that burden, that we're providing services for that student, that family, that community. And it will then show up just like changing the furniture does. It's that broken windows, that old broken windows concept. I think in policing they use that. If you fix it, people will feel better about it. So it's not a deficit. Our children don't have a deficit, okay? So thank you, Dr. Sanchez. And the last, I think it's the last one, let me make sure that I didn't skip anything, is is calling to action to support our DACA and our DAPA families. So many of our students are worried about their parents being I don't even remember the word. What do they want to do with them? Deport them. And just calling to mind that our students in southern New Mexico have that additional stress. So just, I know that the Santa Fe district did this, and I think we need to keep ensuring that our legislature hears the concerns also from southern New Mexico in this regard. I also have this one, to increase funding to public schools and provide adequate support for public schools as required by the New Mexico Constitution. That is a forever one. We always ask the same thing. So we will, I ask that you read these carefully. And how many do you think we should send up? All of them, or?
Madam President, that's at the discretion of the board, how many they want to officially adopt as.
Well, if you have an idea of how many and which ones, go ahead and number them and put them in order, and we will vote accordingly, okay? That will be on our next.
What would be the problem of sending all of them?
We could potentially do that. We do need to vote for them individually, okay?
When will we do that?
Well,
Madam President, we'll do that on September the 6th because they're due to the New Mexico School Boards Association on the, I think, Joe, we have to mail them the 9th, or have them there by the 9th. That does not preclude us or the board from sending these to whomever you want to send them to.
yes, and we're going to send them to everybody that we can think of, so I think that's the other piece. I mean, this is just, we're being as proactive as we can be. Okay, that takes us to board member reports. Does anyone have anything to report?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Well, I had a really interesting experience driving a school bus last Thursday.
That makes three
I
of
was
us.
subjected to the harassment of the transportation staff, which they had a good time, and so did I.
Yes.
I'm you
Yes,
did too.
go ahead. I did too, also, yes, obviously.
I'm
Ms.
sorry that I was out of town last week because I missed the bus driving and I missed administrative retreat. I missed several other things. But I did, just before we left, attend a presentation on dyslexia that Dr. Sanchez invited me to attend, which was interesting because the teachers were from the prison, and they came into our facility because there was a problem with getting presenters into their facility. It was very interesting and very revealing, and I learned quite a lot. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That sounds interesting. Do any of the other board members have anything to report? Because I have a report.
I would have tried driving the bus, but
Yes.
I don't think that, first of all, I don't know if I could have got on the bus, but
Well, it was a lot of fun, let me tell you. My report is the following. The first meeting of the bus task force was very successful and has created a good opportunity to build a good relationship between district, board, STS management, and bus drivers. I want to thank everyone that has participated in making this essential service better understood by all of us. I attended the leadership meeting in Taos, and there is a push for board members to become more involved with all meetings like the LESC, yeah, that's right, and other education hearings in Santa Fe and across the state. The LESC will be meeting in Alamogordo in the next 3 days, and so there's our first opportunity to attend meeting. I attended the new employee orientation, the K3 plus performance at Tombaugh, a League of Women's Voters meeting on student engagement. I also spoke about 16 ways adults can support children exposed to violence and trauma at the administrators' retreat. This came from a nonprofit called Futures Without Violence. I also spoke at the bus in service, and they told me this was the first time a board member had ever done so. I attended the first school day at White Sands School, and they always do such a good job of being there for their students and families. I really think that they are a community school and in all the right ways. I drove a school bus very slowly around the Field of Dreams parking lot and attended the Lynn Open House, a very successful event. As school has now started, I wanted to thank Dr. Sanchez and all the staff for a smooth and successful beginning to the school year. We could not have done it with everyone's input, and I think it's just gone marvelously. Finally, I send condolences to the family of Officer Chavez from Hatch. As you see, addressing violence in our students can work as a preventative to violence in the future. We must be proactive and practice peace in our everyday lives. So that is my report, and I know that I get a little hot under the collar with Representative Pierce, but you keep me down, so thank you. This takes us to, we do not have a student advisor today, but hopefully as of tomorrow, we will be meeting with our students. We're having a mixer for students. And so any of the board members are welcome to come to the mixer.
What time is that?
6, is it at 6? In Conference Room A tomorrow, okay? So if you're free and are able, and I also have the schedule for the LESC. If you're interested in going, I'm thinking of going on Friday. I know that some of you will be there already.
And Madam President, just so the board's aware, on Thursday morning, David Morales is being
Yes.
recognized by the LESC from Mayfield High School, our Teacher of the Year. And they're going to have a special recognition, so I'm hoping to drive up to attend that just to support David, and then I'll foot it back to the district.
Okay. And finally, we have, I wish I could go Thursday, but I can only go on Friday. We have our schedule, so look over it. We have a closed executive on September the 6th. Remember to come in and read our applications, and maybe perhaps schedule it with Linda, or let Dr. Sanchez know that you're going to be here so that we're not all showing up at the same time. And I think if there is no other issues, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Good night.